Hello, can anyone hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
So can everybody?
Hello?
Good morning.
Order. I call this meeting to order. This is the Standing Committee on Public Accounts. My name is Nolan Young. I'll be chairing this committee. I'll remind everyone to put their phones on silent, and I'll ask committee members to introduce themselves, starting with Ms. Coombs.
Good morning, folks. Welcome all. Kendra Coombs, member for Cape Breton Center, Whitney Pier.
And to Mr. Smith.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here this morning. My name is Kent Smith. I'm the MLA for the Eastern Shore.
Hi there and welcome. I'm Tom Taggart, MLA for Colchester North.
Good morning, John A. McDonald, MLA for Hants East.
Good morning, Melissa Sheehy-Bouchard, MLA for Hants West.
Good morning, Susan LeBlanc, MLA for Dartmouth North.
Good morning, everyone. Brendan McGuire, Halifax Atlantic.
Good
Morning, everybody. Braden Clark, MLA for Bedford South.
And just to note, we have officials from the Auditor General's office, Legislative Council, and Legislative Committee's officer in attendance as well. On today's agenda, we have officials with us from the Department of Public Works and Build Nova Scotia with respect to the 2019 report of the Auditor General, Selection and Quality Management on Bridge Projects in Central and Western Districts, and the 2020 report of the Auditor General Government-Wide Contaminated Sites. And I'd ask the witnesses to introduce themselves, starting with Mr. Ray.
Jason Ray, Manager of Environmental Services with Public Works.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, ladies and gentlemen. Dave Benoit, President and CEO of Build Nova Scotia.
Good morning, everyone. Peter Hackett, Deputy Minister of Public Works.
Good morning, everybody. Don Maillet, the Executive Director of Highway Design and Construction.
Thank you. Mr. Hackett, did you have some opening remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I do. So if you want me to start, I can. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. As I mentioned earlier, I'm Peter Hackett, Deputy Minister of Public Works, for the Department of Public Works, I guess. I'm joined here today with myself as Don Maillet, Executive Director of Highway Engineering and Construction, Dave Benoit, CEO of Build Nova Scotia, Connie Roney, Director of Building Engineering, Design and Construction, Jason Ray, the Manager of Environmental Services at Public Works, Will Crocker, Structural Engineer at Public Works, and Donnie Burke, the Executive Project Director at Build Nova Scotia. Donnie's at the back as well. The Department of Public Works is a dynamic place. From building and maintaining a provincial transportation network to constructing schools, healthcare facilities, to shaping traffic laws and regulations, our work plays a big role in the day-to-day lives of Nova Scotians. With thousands of employees stationed in the regions throughout the province, we plan, develop, and manage the critical provincial infrastructure that the people of this province depend on. Your committee has asked us here today to provide an update on a response to recommendations from the Auditor General. Specifically, the 2019 report on selection and quality management of bridge projects and the 2020 report on contaminated sites. Our province is responsible for about 4,100 bridges, and right now we have more than 40 bridge projects in various stages of planning and construction for both replacement and rehabilitation throughout the province. In April, the Office of the Auditor General released an update on the status of recommendations from the 2019 bridge report. Unfortunately, the Auditor General identified several areas of non-compliance in that report for us not making progress. Our work on these recommendations was impacted by delays we experienced during the procurement of a new structures asset management system and some delays associated with COVID-19. The system itself is one of the AG recommendations and will allow us to analyze, track, and manage our bridge assets more effectively and strategically. Additionally, this technical solution is needed to address many of the other outstanding recommendations as they hinge on the new system being up and running. It's disappointing that we ran into these challenges, but I'm pleased to report that they are now behind us. This past spring, we closed an RFP, purchased software, and hired a consultant to move forward. Currently, we're in the process of inputting a significant amount of data into the new system and are targeting full implementation by next year. While our 5-year highway improvement plan outlines our current and upcoming bridge projects, we will always address any instance where a bridge requires immediate attention. I'd like to shift focus right now to the 2020 Auditor General Report on contaminated sites. Public Works supports environmental management and remediation of sites in 2 ways. First, our Environmental Services Division develops and implements environmentally sound construction and maintenance practices while supporting the prevention, assessment, and cleanup of contaminated sites. And second, the former Nova Scotia Lands, which is now part of Build Nova Scotia, coordinates several important projects throughout the province. This includes remedial activities at Boat Harbor and historic mine sites such as the Montague Mines in HRM and the Goldenville Mine in Guysborough County. Working across government, including natural resource renewables and environmental climate change, our teams have made great strides in implementing the Auditor General's 2020 recommendations. Oversight bodies in the form of Deputy Ministers Committee and the Interdepartmental Advisory Committee have been established and have been meeting to address the contaminated site issues. Public Works has contributed information to an annual provincial inventory that is being maintained by the Department of Finance and Treasury Board. This ensures proper tracking of the number of contaminated sites as well as the progress being made to remediate those sites. Finally, a ranking matrix was created to prioritize sites using a risk-based approach. This supports environmental policy for prompt response to spills or other incidents while making certain that Public Works bases are reviewed to minimize their environmental footprint. I think it's important to note that Public Works has been assessing and managing its bases for years before the new contaminated site regulations came into play in 2013. However, with these newly developed tools, we can rank and plan our base improvements work better than ever, all while continuing to remain compliant under the regulations in the unfortunate event that a contamination does occur. This work is the product of great teamwork, and I want to commend everyone involved for bringing greater alignment and collaboration to our provincial efforts as we continue to manage contaminated sites throughout the province. I'm pleased to report that we recently met with the Office of the Auditor General and received positive feedback about our progress. To wrap up, I would like to extend my thanks to the Office of the Auditor General for the continued dialogue about the recommendations from both reports. I want to assure this committee that we remain committed to fully implementing and to the recommendations provided to us. I'd like to thank you and be happy to take your questions.
Thank you, Deputy Hackett. I think most of us have been through this before. It's 20-20-20. When the 20 minutes hits, I'll cut you off if you're in the middle of an answer. So without further ado, we'll start. It's 9:07 with the Liberal Caucus. MLA McGuire.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And first of all, I'd just like to welcome you back and recognize everything you and your community have been under over the last few weeks and months. Been following you a bit on social media and talking to you. You've done an incredible job for your constituents, and I just want to put that on the record. Great job. Now with that, bridges are obviously important, right? And I want to speak about a little bridge in my community, which I've had several conversations over the years with your department about. That would be the bridge in Ketch Harbor, and I'm pretty sure all of you are aware of that bridge. We've had conversations in the past about this bridge, not so much about its structure, but more so about its accessibility. It did take some damage during the last hurricane. They did have you all reacted quickly, so thank you for that. But right now, there's one way into that community, essentially, and one way out. If somebody is walking on that bridge, it's a close fit if a car comes by. If you have an accessibility issue, you have no chance in hell. You either got to throw yourself off that bridge, get hit by a vehicle, or the vehicle stop. The problem with the area, it is the route to Crystal Crescent Beach. And we know there's issues with speeding and people who don't know the road. So with this bridge, I think this bridge is kind of for me, it's become like a symbol. Or every time I see that bridge, I'm reminded of this government. And I'm reminded of this government because I was under the impression that this bridge was going to be fixed. It's now no longer on any list. This bridge helps people with, is not a bridge that is good for accessibility. So it's a symbol to the way this government, especially in HRM, are treating people, our most vulnerable, people with accessibility issues. And we're seeing that. All you have to do is walk out of this building and you will see how this government is treating people who need it the most and are most vulnerable. So why am I sitting here today asking about a bridge that I was under the impression for the last few years this was going to be fixed? And why is it that nobody in that government has stepped up and said, this is an accessibility issue? If there is an emergency, and there was an emergency during the last hurricane that made landfall in Ketch Harbor. So are we to tell the most vulnerable people in that community, stay put? So when can we expect for this bridge to be replaced and up to the standard that 99.9% of bridges in Nova Scotia are at, where it doesn't matter if you're in a wheelchair, it doesn't matter if you have accessibility issue, it doesn't matter if you can run, walk, crawl, you can use the bridge.
Deputy Hackett.
Yeah, I'll start, I guess, start the answer and then maybe go from there. I'm personally not familiar, I know the bridge, I'm personally not familiar with the complete issue on the accessibility and how that ties into the pedestrians at that location. So I will ask one of the staff to address that in a second. But I do want to go back to, some of the things we just talked about on the bridge itself. If there's issues of this nature that come up with us, we often work with, I'm not saying this particular bridge, but I'm assuming some of the same thing. We often work with the municipalities to make sure that if there is sidewalks on bridges, that there is, and it's accessibility on bridges, that there is some place for the accessibility person who needs that resource, or even pedestrians, has a place to go. So we usually put sidewalks on bridges that there's an actual place for them to move on to. You don't want them moving off a bridge onto a shoulder of a road where there's no shoulder of the road, because just the bridge is a place of refuge, but there's no refuge on the shoulder. So in most cases, when we get into those situations, we work with the municipality to, if there's extension on the bridge, we have to do something to the bridge to make that work with the municipality. We'd also have to have some sort of widening of the shoulder, the sidewalk, that sort of thing for the person to get to, or the public to get to, because we can't strand them on both the bridge and the sidewalk.
MLA McGuire.
Thank you for the answer, Deputy. The problem with the bridge is that it's a bridge, right? So there is no sidewalk. There is no. So if you have an accessibility issue, the only other option is to jump into the ocean. And I dare say, a lot of people. Probably, I don't think that's a good idea. And so to me, this is once again coming back to, I've done a little poll within, and I know this is not on the department, but I've done a little poll with my fellow HRM MLAs, not all of them, but a lot of them, to figure out what's happening in their community over the next year, 2, 3, when it comes to infrastructure from this department and other departments. And what we're seeing is, in my case, none, which is fine because we did get a lot done over the last 10 years. The MLA to my left, none. We know that speaking to other MLAs in HRM, none or very little. So this is becoming a theme in this government. It's HRM versus rural is what's happening. And there's lots of proof in the pudding for people that don't believe that. When the public transit funding was released from this government, the vast majority of public transit is in HRM. So you would think they'd at least get $1. They got $0 from this government. The money that's coming from these departments, not because of the deputies and the executive directors and the presidents and the CEOs and the managers, has been politicized. MLAs that are not conservative are getting phone calls and saying that their projects have been backed up a couple of years. So it's not a question, it's more of a statement by me that this bridge is a symbol to me, because the people in my community did not vote conservative, they're being punished. Because the people in Mr. Clark's community did not vote conservative, they're being punished. The people in Ms. LeBlanc's community did not vote conservative, they're being punished. So I'll give you another example, and this is a little dam that was supposed to be replaced 3 years ago. I sat there during an election and watched the Premier, then the Leader of Opposition, and his candidate at the time rushed to make a video because we had found out about this dam at Williams Lake, that if it gives way, will completely wipe out the infrastructure on Purcell's Cove Road. They know that. We have a lake that's dying, and we have a potential disaster if this dam that was built, I think, in the 1600s gives way. So we started the process of getting this thing done. And here we are 3 years later. I don't feel we're any further ahead. It's another construction season gone, here and gone. And I'm going to tell you why I'm frustrated with this dam. Because I had a meeting not too long ago with a gentleman who used to be the president of the local Conservative Association in my riding, who's a past candidate. And you know what he said to me? This is not going to be announced until we have a PC candidate in your riding so that the Premier can stand here beside that dam with that candidate and make that announcement. So nobody can give me answers on what's happening with that dam. It's been 3 years, and I'm hoping that you can. And I'm asking the Deputy Minister on this one, because as the Minister knows, and listen, the Minister of Transportation I have the utmost respect for. I don't think she plays partisan games. I think she does what she feels is correct. But as it sits right now, I'm 3 years in of asking questions on this. That's something that was promised to be done right away by the now Premier of Nova Scotia. And his own people are saying to me that there was a meeting with the local associations, with the local Conservative associations from the Conservative Brain Trust. And they said, give us a list of projects in the ridings, the ones they don't hold. And we are going to announce those projects next spring. And I'll tell you what they are for my riding, which I was told, and it all falls under you guys. One is they're going to stand there and announce a new dam in Williams Lake. The next is they're going to stand there and announce a new hockey rink, which they promised 2.5, 3 years ago. The next is the widening of Herring Cove Road leading into the Rotary. I reminded them that all three are pretty much municipal issues, but that individual is well connected with this party. He's a former candidate. It was a president of the local association. So that, to me, is partisan playing politics with issues in our community and issues in everyone's community. So I ask again, this will be the third construction season that has passed on this dam. I need a concrete answer today for the people of that community. When will that dam be replaced? When will the funding be released? And when can we start construction?
Just a reminder, Emily McGuire, that this is on the Auditor General's 2020 follow-up report, but I'll hand it over to Deputy Hackett. Deputy Hackett.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. So going back to the Ketch Harbor Bridge, did you want some more information on that?
I just want to know when.
Emily McGuire.
Sorry. The information I want on that bridge is when can we expect it to be fully accessible for people with that have disabilities and have issues with mobility.
Deputy Hackett.
I asked Mr. Maillet to answer some of that, if he can maybe put some of that in perspective for where it might be on the program or what we would be looking at, if that's okay.
Yeah. Mr. Maillet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With regard to the bridge, it's safe, it's sound for the motoring public and for the pedestrians crossing that bridge. The bridge itself was designed a long time ago. It's a wood structure. It's inherent to probably providing the space that our new designs accommodate the accessibility issues, which we certainly have that in our new designs. So right now we have a problem. The bridge is sound. It's rated at a decent rating. And we have lots of other bridges in the province that need to be replaced that are probably in worse shape. So what we could do is probably look and see what modifications could be done to the bridge, realizing that there's limitations with the bridge associated with the timber work, and how we would, I guess, cantilever a sidewalk off the bridge. Again, we could look at that only because we feel that the bridge is in sound condition, and it's probably not at the point where it needs to be replaced. So is that okay?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Thank you.
Emily McGuire.
Yeah, that's perfect. I mean, for me, I know that the bridge is in good shape. I just, again, you literally can't have a bicycle on that bridge at the same time that a car is going by. That's the problem. So somebody who has mobility issues, and we've had lots of near misses there. And, the question I keep getting is, who's responsible if somebody gets hit? Right? When we know that this is an issue in the community. So second would be the partisan. I want to ask you to comment on the partisanship that's happening in this province, but I'll ask you to comment on that dam, please.
Deputy Hackett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so we've had some progress and discussions on Williams Lakes Dam. I know we've talked to ourselves about that as well. We've had some conversations, on responsibility of the dam and ownership of the dam. There has been some legwork done over the last little while. I'm going to ask Dave Benoit to comment on where we are with on the progress in the Williams Lake Dam.
Mr. Benoit.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the question. I guess I would start out by saying that it was one of the first issues that was brought to me when I got the role and I had my first meeting with our minister, and to make it very clear that this is something that we need to resolve. That was only 5 months ago, and I can appreciate that you've been waiting 3 years. So I'm not trying to say that that's not relevant or anything like that. Of course, it's relevant, and it's relevant to the people who are there as well. I think, to be honest with you, we're very close to a solution, the details of which we're continuing to work on. And it doesn't sound like it should be all that challenging a topic, but in fact there are lots of stakeholders in this process, and we want to make sure that we've addressed all of them and that we've gotten an opportunity to make sure we've heard from all the voices, so that when we finally get to the end solution, people aren't then being upset or trying to resist the solution. What I can tell you is that my team is working very diligently in order to find a solution forward. We've got a couple that we've identified. We're now going through the details of figuring out which ones are the most feasible and which ones make sense for long-term sustainability, because we're looking at it not just a fix today, but make sure that this is fixed for the long term, and that takes some time. I'm hoping that in a short order here we'll have all those details together. I do expect that from my team, and then we'll be going forward. I will say, though, just to sort of set expectations, is that this is probably a 2-year fix no matter when it started. And that's partly because of the planning and partly because of regulations when you can actually work in the water in accordance with the Environmental Act. So, I don't want to unnecessarily raise expectations, but I do want to tell you that since I've arrived, we've been very focused on that, trying to get it get the details together.
MLA McGuire.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. I do know that the department does work hard on these things, but it is frustrating when you have issues that you watch people campaign on, and I know that's not on you, and then 3 years later, it's still not fixed, and then hearing that, oh, we'll re-announce it once we get a candidate for your riding, which is pretty, in my opinion, pretty slimy. Like, just get it done. I don't care.
Order.
I'm not calling anyone slimy.
I don't know if that's appropriate. Can we get back to the 2020 report of the Auditor General, MLA McGuire?
It's a bridge. Yeah, I'm talking about bridges. Yeah. So it's pretty underhanded, I will say. It feels that way to me. One of the things that I would like for Deputy Minister, if you could do, is I would like a breakdown of the amount of money on infrastructure, roads, and projects that are being spent in rural Nova Scotia compared to HRM. Because again, I believe that there's a trend here. And I know that when we were in government, we treated everyone equal. It didn't matter if you had, if you were represented by the NDP, Conservatives, or Liberals. It didn't matter what part of this province you belonged in. In fact, I'm pretty sure that Premier McNeil built a school in Premier Houston's riding when Tim was in opposition and criticizing him every single day. He didn't care because he listened to the bureaucrats, he listened to the people that made the decisions, and he said, these are where this needs to be done. So could you, it may take some time, but could you please table the amount of funding from your department? And I'm not picking on your department because I'm going to be asking this from everybody that appears in this committee. How much funding, how many projects over the next 2 to 3 years will be going forward in rural versus urban? Because you need more work.
MLA McGuire, I just remind you to refer to the honourable members by their title. We do refer to you as MLA McGuire, and I'd expect the same from others. Deputy Hackett, please.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. So I'll just talk a little bit about, you're talking basically about the highway plan, I'm assuming, or you're talking about the entire capital program for government. Yeah. So if you're talking about the highway plan, I'll talk about that a little bit. If you're talking about the other capital projects for government, they'd have to go to the client departments. So we just deliver the projects. We get the funding from the client departments, be like education, justice, health. Those departments carry those budgets, so you'd have to ask them about how much money they're spending in each. I mean, we can tell you what we're tendering. But they would have to tell you what their budgets are for each year, for each constituency. As far as the highway department's concerned, yeah, so we have our 5-year plan. As you know, it was released in January. We're well underway into construction this year in 2023. And so it's a full plan. It's roughly around $500 million, I think, is what we're delivering, trying to get delivered. Obviously, it's a big plan and it's a lot of work. And so we can give you the numbers, but we would prefer to give you the numbers when the tenders are closed and when the numbers all come in, which I said take a little bit of time. Giving out numbers for projects is kind of premature for bidding and tendering and that sort of thing. So when tenders become public, we can certainly gather that information and give it to you during the year or at the end of the year. And going forward into out years, those plans aren't full, right? So the same thing, until we actually get full numbers for those in out years, we wouldn't be able to give you a number that would mean very much. You can certainly look at the 5-year plan and see what work is being done on that plan, but we can certainly get the numbers for you once the projects get tendered and announced.
MLA McGuire.
Yeah, if we could do a year end with your department, and maybe obviously we'll have to put a I don't know if we'd have to do
Order. That concludes time for the liberal questioning. I'll move on to the NDP Caucus. Emily LeBlanc.
Thank you very much. And I'm just going to ask a couple quick questions, and then I'm going to pass it on to my colleague online. But my first question is, as we all know, this week the RCMP closed Lake Road in Colchester County indefinitely after a bridge collapsed under the weight of a truck. And my first question is, when was that bridge last inspected, and what were the results? What condition was that bridge in?
Deputy Hackett.
We have that information. We prefer not to, if it's okay, Mr. Chair, not to release that information at this time because the bridge is under investigation. Because the accident is so recent, there would be the cause of the accident, and it's being done by our risk management team. So that information is there, but we would like not to release it at this point because it's under investigation for the cause.
That's fair. MLA LeBlanc.
Well, I don't know if it is fair, because before the accident happened, the information would be the same. You already knew what the condition of the bridge would have been in, and when the bridge was last inspected. So those two things would not change depending on the results of the thing. So of the investigation. So. Yes, if you want to not talk about exactly what happened and why the bridge collapsed, that's fine. I understand that maybe that truck was not, there's like something about the type of truck that was on the bridge, but certainly I think the Public Accounts Committee would be in its right place to ask for the other two pieces of information. So when the bridge was last inspected and what condition was the bridge in at that
Deputy Hackett.
We can get the information. I would like to, before I table anything to public accounts, I'll need to check with the Department of Justice. Because what happens in these situations, we lose control. We don't have control of the structure anymore. The structure now goes into investigation with ISD. It goes through the insurance. It's got to be determined how these things were caused. That information will become could become part of a legal trial. I'll just check with the Department of Justice. If we can give that out, I'll table it here at public accounts.
Just with respect to, we're on the follow-up report of 2018, 2019, 2020 performance audit recommendations. So it's within the Auditor General's report. So if we could stay on topic, MLA LeBlanc.
Mr. Chair, this is absolutely on topic. There's a number of recommendations in that follow-up report about bridge inspections. As well, Mr. Chair, respectfully, you were not at a meeting a couple of weeks ago when we discussed the fact that we are able to ask, when we have department officials in front of us, we can ask things that may or may not be exactly on the subject of the of the topic at hand. So I thank Mr. Hackett, or Deputy Hackett, for that answer. And I would say, in keeping with the way the public accounts is trying to work, that my colleagues would agree with me that those two pieces of information are very important. I think that, yes, for sure, check with the Department of Justice, but otherwise I think we should follow up, and the chair should remind the department to get that information as soon as possible. Keeping on, I suppose these may be null and void, but I'm wondering if you can provide the committee with the most recent inspection report of that bridge.
Deputy Hackett.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, and I will check to see if I can release that.
Okay.
MLA LeBlanc.
So in the 5-year capital plan, or highway plan, I should say, the road was slated for repaving. So does that repaving, like in general, would that repaving include the replacing of the bridge? Was the bridge scheduled to be replaced? And if so, when? Or when the road is repaved, would that just be like a repaving over top of the bridge without working on the bridge? What, and specifically and in general?
Deputy Hackett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to hand that over to Mr. Maillet to answer.
Mr. Maillet.
This is specific to the bridge on Lake Road?
Yeah.
Okay. The bridge on Lake Road had a wooden deck. We would not have paved that. And the infrastructure around the bridge rehabilitation and replacement are independent of road construction. So we treat both assets differently when it comes to rehabilitate the road or the bridge or replacements. Yep.
And MLA LeBlanc.
Yeah, and so Deputy Hackett has already alluded to the fact that there is an investigation taking place. So my question was, does an inspection take place when a bridge collapses? Who does the inspection or investigation, and can the committee be provided with a copy once it's complete?
Deputy Hackett.
Yeah, so what happens in these events, and we've had them before, is there will be an inspection done. It'll be done by an internal audit, risk management, internal ISD. They'll hire an independent engineering firm or engineer to come and inspect the bridge or look at the bridge to look at the cause of the failure, and there will be a report provided to internal services after that's done. Then the investigation continues on from there about cause, liability, and that sort of thing. So I can only assume you can get a report. It would be made public, but that would be a question for internal services when the report's completed.
MLA LeBlanc.
Thank you very much. I'm going to now hand it over to my colleague, Emily Coombs.
MLA Coombs.
Thank you. Keeping on this track with regards to bridges. So in other provinces, a public database is available to people where people can see the conditions of bridges and have that and have the information such as their last inspection date. And I think much of what we're discussing right now with regards to the Lake Road Bridge is very relevant to this. And it's something that the AG in the report had also identified as something that would be important for people to know. And so my question is, when will we have a database, a public database in Nova Scotia for bridges?
Deputy Hackett.
Yeah, so I'm gonna pass this question over to Don Maillet, and maybe Will Crocker would like to come up and speak as well, or a structural engineer.
Mr. Crocker.
Thank you, Chair. At the moment, all of our bridge information in terms of location is available through the public open data system. In terms of what is or isn't made public in terms of condition, that has yet to be determined what we're going to make available through that system. All that's tying back into our, working towards the recommendations from the Auditor General within developing a new asset management system to help us better manage these structures.
MLA Coombs.
Thank you. I want to keep on this this track with regards to what should be public information, and that is, where does why can't the information from this bridge or any other bridge collapse be made public as to the whole information, why it collapsed, responsibility as to why it collapsed, condition of that road, what actual legal legal standing, I guess, does the Department of Public Works or Department of Internal Services or the Department of Justice have to withhold this information?
Deputy Hackett.
So I guess I could go, I'm going to go back a little bit and talk a bit about the bridge system as it currently stands, and then I'll talk a little bit about the Lake Road Bridge.
No, I just want the information as to what the legal standing that is there to withhold this information from public accounts.
Yeah, Deputy Hackett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You're talking about the Lake Road Bridge?
Emily Coombs.
That bridge or any other bridge that has collapsed?
Deputy Hackett.
So in the Lake Road Bridge, on this particular bridge, or if you looked at other bridges that have collapsed over a period over the last number of years, nothing recent, but we had a couple of years ago, if there's an incident that's involved in a structure, and it's caused by a third party, that ends up going into, like I said, our internal services group, risk management, and it becomes more of a legal issue. So the information is is held by them. They'll collect the information and they'll find out what who the liability was. It becomes, it becomes who's at fault. Who's got to replace it, who pays for that. So that's why it becomes a discussion between the government and the third party. And so all that information is collected by them, and they start looking at it as basically a legal issue. So the department kind of stands back as another party who is being looked at from risk management and from those lawyers. So we kind of step back from that. There is a process they go through. At the end of the process, the information, my understanding, would be made available, but once again, you have to speak to internal services on that. So that's why the information is not, I have to figure out what we can and can't release at this point because it's early days on that issue, on that item. I have to know what internal services is doing to collect the information and what they have involved. So when these incidents happen, we don't take them lightly, and I don't think they do either. So that's why they would want to keep onto the information, but that's something I'll have to ask what we can and can't release.
Emily Coombs.
In the 2019 report, Deputy, an estimated 600 bridges were listed as in poor condition. So if that is true, at the time of the report, there was 600 bridges in poor condition. And say one of them collapses tomorrow or today or next week or a year from now because they were not, the work that needs to be done was not done. Who's responsible? Because we know that they're already in poor condition. So isn't the government of Nova Scotia responsible for replacing any bridges that are in poor condition? Now, regardless of what happened in this situation, I'm talking about all bridges. And that is, so 600 bridges were listed in 2019 in poor condition. I doubt 1,600 bridges have had the work done that needs to be done on them. So who's responsible if there is a collapse on that bridge? Because we already knew about them.
Deputy Hackett.
Yeah, I'll start this, and I'll may ask one of my colleagues here to kind of finish for me. But so the way the inspections work is we inspect each bridge annually. We're expected to do a level 1 inspection, which is a visual inspection of every bridge. And then I believe it's every 6 years we try to do a level 2, which is a more in-depth study of the bridge. And then if required something deeper than that, we do a level 3. The ratings and conditions on those bridges can vary depending upon what the issue is, and that's what might give them a poor rating, but it doesn't mean they're in any kind of peril. It just means that there has to be some repairs done to that bridge, and it depends on the case. If a bridge that we feel a bridge is not safe, if we feel that there's something out there that would limit the loads on the bridge, or the bridge has to be taken out of service, we would just take it out of service. Now, we have to put in detours, and sometimes that's inconvenient to the public, but we would do that if it's something that has to come out and it's going to be unsafe, and we know it's unsafe, we would not keep it in service. And if it inconveniences the public because we have to take it out of service, we have to inconvenience the public, and we try to make something to work for them. I mean, we wouldn't make them drive hours and hours. We would try to make it work out some way to find some alternative route. But we certainly wouldn't leave something in place that we thought was unsafe. Under the condition ratings, I believe it's 1 to 9 or 1 to 10. I'm just going to let Mr. Crocker speak about that and about what those ratings actually mean.
Mr. Crocker.
No, I'm good.
Thank you, Deputy. As he mentioned, we inspect our bridges, and they receive a rating from 9 being excellent through to 0 being closed. The numbers, when you look at the numbers, anything rated a 3 or 4 tend to be on the poor side. 5 would be considered fair, 6, 7, 8 good, and then higher excellent. The important thing to look at when consider when you're looking at these inspection ratings is that a rating of poor does not necessarily mean it's unsafe. It just means that work has been identified and that needs to be taken care of and prioritized as part of our overall management of our structures. And at the end of the day, if during an inspection process or it's brought to our attention in some other fashion, if a bridge is thought to be unsafe, it will get addressed immediately, whether it's through closure or weight restriction or some other fashion.
MLA Coombs, you have about 5 minutes left.
Thank you. Can someone give me there's, as of 2019, 600 bridges. Can someone please give me the updated number as to how many bridges that we have in poor condition?
Deputy Hackett.
Yeah, I'm going to give that to Mr. Maillet.
Mr. Maillet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The percentage has dropped from 14.9 to 14.1%.
MLA Coombs.
Okay. At some point, can someone please give me that in an actual number? The other question I have is, how many other bridges are at risk of collapse?
Mr. Maillet.
At this point, if that bridge is in condition to collapse, we'd have it closed. So I suspect that any bridge in that condition would not be in use.
MLA Coombs.
Thank you. So my understanding that the department's current approach to meeting the recommendations of 2.1 is to purchase new software. But the AG's 2019 report noted that the software at the time was capable of recording this data, and despite this, the department was not tracking. How will this new software ensure that bridge inspections and repair records are kept current and complete? Will this work be ongoing?
Deputy Hackett.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to ask Will Crocker to talk a bit about the new software.
Mr. Crocker.
Thank you, Chair. It's important to note that since the recommendations came out, we have been working on, a number of initiatives, part of which does include the software. Our current system records basic asset inventory information in all of our inspection records. What the Auditor Office identified was that some of the tracking processes were needing to be improved. It's currently done through other means in district offices, through tracking spreadsheets and other means. The new software system will allow us to keep this in one centralized location. And it'll also include additional information on our bridges, allow us to better track these maintenance needs, better track what has already been done to the bridge in terms of its history, who's responsible for various requirements, and as well as tracking the inspections as we currently are doing.
MLA Coombs.
Yeah, as much as I want to move on to another question, the question wasn't answered. The AG stated that the software at the time of 2019 was capable of recording data, and despite this, the department was not tracking it. And so I guess one of my questions is, why was that?
Deputy Hackett.
I'm gonna put that back over to Will.
Okay, Mr. Crocker.
So it's not that we weren't tracking that information. As I said before, the software that we have stores that information. We just have different systems. It's not a centralized location. This new software system will be a centralized location to help us track these requirements, to help ensure that something isn't missed or lost or somehow not addressed in a timely fashion. It's not that we're not doing this. We are doing these things. We are tracking in spreadsheets. We are making sure our inspections are done. It's just not being done in one localized spot and tracked in one localized software system.
MLA Coombs.
Yes, is the new software in place? And if not, when will it be?
Mr. Crocker.
The software, we had to go through the procurement process, which took some time, as previously mentioned. We are currently in the implementation phase of the software system. It is anticipated that it'll be operational early next year.
MLA Coombs.
So my understanding, there was supposed to be a new bridge inspection procedure that was to be finalized.
Order. That concludes the NDP questioning. Move to the PC Caucus, starting with MLA McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple things I would have asked Mr. Crocker, but he's off the hook because my colleague has answered. So one thing is, as we're making these changes and changing bridges, right, one thing we have to look out for is environment. So I'm not sure who the Deputy Minister wants to put this to, but what's the Department of Environment doing to minimize the environment impact at our bases, where we hold salt and we hold all that stuff? So I'll let the Deputy Minister decide who wants to answer that one.
Deputy Hackett.
Yeah, I can start. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the question. So we do have 76, I think, bases across the province that we have a responsibility to inspect for things like salt management, diesel, things in the soil, creosote, that sort of thing that we left behind, residual materials around those bases. So we do have a program in place that we look after that. It's a pretty rigorous program. We've started that a number of years ago, in the 1990s. Prior to that, we probably weren't doing a whole lot. The rules of environment were different back then. So since then, we've progressed with that and made it even better to inspect all those sites, to be, I guess, to be diligent and proactive. But I'm going to let Jason Ray speak a bit more to what we're actually doing on those.
Mr. Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So yeah, we are doing lots of work on our bases. So one of the things I just want to make sure I iterate is that our highway bases are active industrial sites or commercial sites. So there's work ongoing on these. In some cases, most cases, these bases have a history of operations. So the contamination, if there is any on site, is historic, which is a little bit more difficult to handle, but it's not impossible to handle or mitigate. One tool that I want to just mention that has come out of some of the committees that I've been working on is our risk matrix, risk ranking matrix, sorry. That basically allows our bases, our inventory. We have an inventory of our bases, and that allows the higher risk bases to be looked at first. So that means anything with higher contamination, proximity to population, or the contamination itself, those get attention first. Another thing that has come out of our committee work that came out of, actually one point I want to make on the risk ranking matrix is we met recently with the Office of the Auditor General to review our progress on that file with that tool. Excuse me, and we received positive feedback on that, so that is moving in a direction that the Auditor General's office is looking for. Another item that we work on with our bases is something called our Base Best Practices Project. So that's a manual for personnel at bases. It lists all the different types of maintenance inspections that need to be done on the fuel management systems, any of the maintenance on those, including inspections. And also we're going through a process of updating our fuel dispensing standing offer process. So any of the older fuel dispensing systems on the sites are being replaced with new updated ones. And at that time, we're doing moving away from underground storage facilities for fuel and taking it to above ground, which is easier to maintain and inspect. Another item I want to just comment on is our base cleanup initiatives. So that's dedicated funding that comes out of my division's operating budget that allows managers or area managers to do specific projects at the bases in their areas. And the goal with that is those folks know their bases the best. They know the quick hit items like doing specific types of garbage removal. So we dedicate funding for them to work on those projects and to minimize the environmental impacts of those bases. I just want to loop back around where I mentioned the Integrated Advisory Committee. So that's something that came out of the Auditor General's report, and it was recommended that we had a more collaborative approach. So with that, it gives us an opportunity to share our processes with other departments and talk with them, including the regulator. So environment is also part of that discussion. And we can give feedback on the different processes, so it's much more collaborative, and it just leads to a better process in the end.
MLA McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I do have a question that kind of like bothers me, and I'm sure you'll be able to explain it because I assume it'll be going to Mr. Ray. Why do contaminated sites take over 2 years to get done? So can you explain, because I'm sure most people are trying to figure out how come it's taken us 2 years to do it? I assume the Deputy Minister is good with Mr. Ray?
Mr. Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's a really good question. So generally with the 2 years that's listed in the contaminated site regulations, that's for a very simple cleanup. So a roadside spill or something that an incident that's recorded or that's happened, and we're forced to action to do the cleanup. A lot, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of our bases are more sites with more historic contamination. So it has differing types of contamination, larger areas. So the 2 years that is mentioned in the regulations is really it's a guideline. We have a very good relationship with the regulator, with environment, so we're in constant communication with them, and doing applications for time extensions on the remediation or the management is a work of business. It's how things work. So we put in when the site professional, which we have a qualified site professional in-house within my division. That engineer manages these files, so he's aware of the processes and is making sure that we manage if a consultant's involved or if an application is put into our department for cleanup on an incident on a roadside, that it's done the right way. So we have someone in-house that reviews those and ensures that the site professional that's representing the third party, if it's a third party impact situation, the report's done. And it makes sense, and the end goal is that it's a one and done situation, so we can get in, do the cleanup, and then move on.
MLA McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I am going to ask a question. I expect the Deputy Minister is going to ask Mr. Crocker, but I'll ask it to him anyways. So from the original report, the department had committed to having this new system in place in 2 years, and then now it's December 2023, and I do remember you mentioned procurement. What is and I know that Mr. Crocker said it's now, I'm going to say first quarter next year, early next year with no date. where are we with the implementation onto it, and how long is the implementation expected? And just so Mr. Crocker, I have an IT background, so that's why I'm asking the question. Because I find a lot of times people will come into an implementation and say, oh, we'll get this done in 6 months. A 6-month implementation you're going to be fixing for the next 2 years. So I'm just wondering, what's the timeline for the implementation from when you've got it to you're going to be trained and then rolled it out? And do we expect that we're at a point where, you know, first part of next year is a realistic date?
Mr. Crocker.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of this phasing of where we're at with the system, it was awarded, I forget the exact date, but a number of months ago, and the vendors already taken the data from our current system, implemented it into their system, doing the appropriate background database works to make sure the connections within the various data fields are made correct, to allow us to proceed to the next phase. We're at the point now where we're starting to identify what other systems might we connect into within the department, what other data sources might we pull in that are relevant to bridge asset management. So that's part of what's going on now. Parallel, we've already identified numerous additional data fields that are required or will aid us in those decision-making processes to go into this new system. So all those previous spreadsheets that I talked about, we've identified the data asset fields or data management fields, how they're going to relate to the structure itself, and identified those to the vendor to be put into the system. So right now we're at this stage where we're kind of starting to build the core of the system. The vendor is doing a process where they're building a component of the system, allowing us to test this base component, and then moving forward to the next phase, making sure we get the core of the system correct, right, what we need for our needs. As we move forward, once the core data is in place, we'll then start doing some of the analysis components of the system. So, allowing us to compare different projects within the system, allowing us to compare and identify what might be better to do first in terms of if you have, as previously mentioned, 600 some odd bridges that are in poor condition, how do you really identify which one comes first? So this system will allow us to help prioritize that, and moving forward, I'm looking forward to building the system. And it should be noted at the end of the day, regardless of what the system tells us, we're still maintaining the safety of our structures through regular maintenance inspections. And if something does need to be addressed immediately, we address it.
Emily McDonald.
And thanks for that technical. Apologize for anybody who was going, because I enjoyed your technical brief onto it. I will defer the rest of my time to Emily Smith.
Emily Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I may or may not use all of the remaining time, depending on the answers to the questions. As often happens in committee, we come prepared with questions, and through conversation and through the other parties asking questions, they often get answered. So, Mr. Crocker, thank you. You've done a comprehensive job of answering some of my questions relating to recommendations 2.2, 2.3, and 2.4. I just want to give you the opportunity to make sure that everything that you wanted to get on the record is on the record in terms of formalizing the bridge repairs, the quality assurance system. Is there anything that, after speaking for the last minute, that you thought, oh, I should have said that, and I wish I had? So I'll give you that opportunity, and then I'll move on to my next question.
Mr. Crocker.
Thank you, Chair. Really, these things take time. So, yes, it does seem like it's been a long time that we've been building this system, but going through the process, we went through the proper procurement channels to make sure we did that process correctly. We have an archaic system that exists right now. We want to make sure that we're not repeating that same problem again. So while it's unfortunate that it is taking a long time, I think we're doing the right process, we're going through the right channels, and building the right systems so that for the next 7 years, which is the terms of the contract, will be good. And, before that time's up, we'll be evaluating, how well it's performed for us, and then moving forward from there. But really, it's about making sure we do a good job doing the right thing.
MLA Smith. MLA.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you again, Mr. Crocker. I think the important takeaway for me from this is that earlier on in the conversation, you made it clear that all the work was being done as it was supposed to be being done. It just wasn't necessarily being recorded in the way that the Auditor General wanted to see it recorded, and I'm pleased that we're taking steps to rectify that. Switching gears, Mr. Hackett, I'm going to go to being responsible taxpayers and making sure that we look after our money in the best way possible. So there was conversation in the report about making sure that taxpayers are not overpaying for infrastructure. So what steps are we taking as a department to make sure that we're getting the best bang for our buck as taxpayers?
Deputy Hackett.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk first, and I'll hand over to Mr. Maillet just to make sure I cover everything. Yeah, so in our highway work, anyway, on our highway department side, and also on our building side as well, we have a good team of engineers and architects, people in the field right across the province. We put a lot of effort into making sure that our designs and our estimates are accurate, and to make sure that when we put things out to tender, we try to have everything in place, so we get everything covered, so we're not looking at change orders and stuff like that going forward. We also look at average prices and costs, and we also look at where we're going to get best bang for our buck with the types of tenders we put out, and whether they're design builds or design bid builds or P3s. We do all that kind of analysis to make sure that what we get out of our toolbox, we make sure we get the right delivery for Nova Scotians, so that we get the right prices, and they're very competitive. I'm not on it day to day, so I just want to pass it over to Mr. Maillet for any more comments on with regard to the highway work.
Mr. Maillet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Best bang for buck is to treat the infrastructure early in its life cycle. That could be a road, that could be a bridge, that could be simple as washing the bearings, for example, where you would prevent corrosion from happening. Painting a bridge, for example. So with regard to the asset and the infrastructure itself, it's best to catch it at a certain spot in the life cycle where you don't have to spend a lot of money to either rehabilitate it or to preserve the life of the asset. So through our asset management software, we will be able to identify that in the future, and we do that now, but probably not to the extent that we would like to. So that for us is important because we know that anytime you replace, it costs a lot. Now, with regards to a replacement of a bridge, we go through the analysis of what is best suited for that particular area. And of course, our design team gets together, and of course, we have lots of opportunity to assess the sites, look at utilities, look at all this. So all of that goes into the package as to, what is our environmental impact and all of that. So once the tender package goes out, we do use a 3-year rolling average with our engineers that look at trends through the previous years, and then we see what the bid comes in at. Of course, we compare to our estimates 9 times out of 10. Currently, right now, we can certainly understand that with the labor shortages and the material issues that are associated with some of the market conditions, that probably has an impact on price. So what we need to be is a little bit more creative in our bidding process, trying to have options out there. And when a bridge does come in over budget, we'll also look at some value-added stuff to it, or look and work with the proponent that got the job, or we'll cancel, or we'll regroup and repackage it in a different way to try to minimize some of the cost. So that's somewhat what we do.
MLA Smith.
Thank you. I appreciate that answer. I'm going to switch gears once again and bring the conversation close to my home constituency for a moment, if I may. So the beautiful Eastern Shore, as I'm sure you all take time to visit throughout the summer, as we have some of the best natural resources in the province. Sorry, the member for Colchester North. I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the Musquodoboit Harbour Bridge as a critical piece of infrastructure on the Eastern Shore. As you look at a highway map of the province, you see the 100 series highways that leave out of the core of Halifax span the province, with the exception of the 107 that gets to Musquodoboit Harbour, and then you're left with Trunk 7 for the rest of the way. And we certainly found on the Eastern Shore during COVID that what was previously untapped became a very popular destination. And unfortunately, when you get to the end of the 107, you turn right and you drive a minute down the road, you come to the Musquodoboit Harbour Bridge, which is not necessarily our prettiest asset that we have on the Eastern Shore. And I've had many conversations with Mr. Balsam, Mr. Rafuse, Mr. Peachy about the status of that bridge. So I'm curious to know if we can share today what is the status of the replacement of that bridge, and when can we hope to see a brand new piece of infrastructure to help grow the tourism and the economic life cycle on the Eastern Shore.
Mr. Maillet.
I will concur that the bridge is not pretty. It needs a good paint job, but we're gonna do better than that. So if I could back up the bus just a little bit, 2 years ago, the project was destined to, or the bridge itself was destined to be rehabilitated. And in the process of determining what the cost was going to be through the design work, was quickly determined that the rehabilitation on that bridge was going to be quite extensive, realizing that we basically had to put a detour bridge, and it was quite complex. So through the life cycle analysis of the structure and through what we perceived to a new structure would cost and or sustain through the life cycle of the asset, we determined that it was a replacement. That was 2 years ago, of course, as we can appreciate the regulatory processes and, of course, the design processes and utilities and whatnot. We certainly can appreciate that that takes time when we switch gears. We're hopeful that the bridge will be in a position, possibly, to be procured next year or put on the plan.
Order. That concludes questioning for the PC Caucus. We'll have 12 minutes for our next round, and we'll start it with MLA Clark. MLA Clark.
PC Ryan.
Order.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, everybody, for being here. I believe we have 12 minutes. So I just wanted to start with a quick comment, some questions around transparency of information and so on when it comes to bridges. I'd like to urge the department to do that as much as you can. I think just in general in government, a lack of information leads inevitably to a lack of confidence and trust, which is certainly not the direction we want to go in. And I know it's a ton of work. We're talking about thousands of bridges, but I think if we can get to a point quickly where people can find out, these are all the bridges the department manages, these are the conditions of them, this is when they were inspected. I think that would give people a great deal of peace of mind, even if they never go there. Just knowing that it exists, I think, has a lot of value. So I just want to double down on that point from earlier. And I wanted to ask a few questions around contaminated sites as well, which I think is an underappreciated issue in the province, to be honest. So just curious, I'm not sure who this question is best directed to. Maybe Deputy Hackett can direct. How many sites are we talking about here, in general across the board? And is that updated on a fairly regular basis? Thank you.
Deputy Hackett.
Yeah, I'm going to start, and I'll pass it off. But there is we have compiled a list of contaminated sites across the project. Some are managed, some are active, some are dormant, and some are looked at for the future. So that we have a list. It is looked at by our interdepartment group or interdepartment team, and that's regularly reviewed and updated and brought to the Deputy Minister's Committee as well as part of the Contaminated Sites group. But I'm going to let Jason Ray speak a bit more to how many sites are actually out there and what we're actually doing about them.
Mr. Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so I'll stick to the numbers that I know for sure, because like the deputy mentioned that the Treasury Board does hold a list for all the provinces' contaminated sites numbers. I can give numbers specifically to our department, so DPW. We have 20, in total, we have 30 liabilities that have been booked with Treasury Board, 26 of those as bases. So what I mentioned earlier there is that since those are noted as being a contaminated site under the regulations, we manage those under the regulations, and those are in compliance with the regulations.
MLA Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so you mentioned, Mr. Ray, that there are 30 liabilities there booked with Treasury Board. What is the dollar value, I guess, of those liabilities in total?
Mr. Ray.
So I remember the number as a total for our province, not particularly with our department, so it's just a matter of the numbers. But I know that the last published numbers from Finance and Treasury Board were around $450 million. So that's a province-wide liability list that's maintained by Treasury Board.
Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so to clarify, that $450 million liability, I think it's fair to say would be a best estimate, perhaps, because obviously there's a whole ton of detailed work that is not done in the vast majority of those cases yet that could reveal, unfortunately, that cost of these things usually goes up, not down. Mr. Ray, would it be safe to say that's probably an incomplete and probably low accounting of the overall real cost?
Mr. Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I can't specifically comment on how Treasury Board manages the amounts. Just to loop back to, I had mentioned earlier about committee work. So as part of the Auditor General's recommendations was to create a committee where some of these items are discussed. So in that, we're working with a consultant right now on a liability framework guideline. So that helps our department and to step back here a bit, some of the items that are worked on in the committee, our department pilots at first, and then once we get that as a well-oiled machine, we can roll it out to other departments. So what I'm hoping is that with this framework, it's a guideline to help develop an accurate liabilities for some of these sites. So we did find through the Auditor General's process that there was an area for improvement there. Along with that, there's an accounting standard that finance follows, which is the PS 3260, I think is the name of it. So what we've done is we're working with a consultant to create a guideline that helps us have a more precise and accurate liability.
MLA Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Ray, for that. So if you could perhaps just give a quick overview of what I assume would be one of the bigger liabilities or ongoing remediations, of course, related to a boat harbor there. I know that's been going on for years. I'm just curious if you could give us a kind of a quick status update on where that project lies at the moment.
Deputy Hackett.
Yeah, I'm just defer from Jason. I'm going to give it on to Mr. Benoit. He'll speak about Boat Harbor.
Mr. Benoit.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Deputy, and thank you for the question. As it relates to Boat Harbor, obviously a very important and significant site. In an earlier question, there was about, why does it take so long to do the cleanups? And I think Mr. Ray answered it perfectly. The one key element, though, that maybe wasn't as pronounced is the fact that it takes many, many stakeholders in order to look at a site, and we need to make sure that we've got the right solution for the area and for the contaminants that are contained therein, and making sure that and then there's geography and access and other factors that factor into this. The update on Boat Harbor is that it continues to progress, and we continue to work with our First Nations, the Pictou Landing First Nations, and the federal government in order to get to that solution. There is agreement across the board on what they want to see at the end. If you could paint a picture of what this place would look like on completion. So there's agreement there. It's the matter of then how do we get to the details to be able to deliver on that vision. And so it remains in the environmental assessment phase. And it has been there for a little bit as we go through, because every time there's, a question or there's a concern that's raised by any of the stakeholders, we all take a chance to explore that concern, get replies back, and then make sure that we can move it forward together.
MLA Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One more question, and then I'll turn over to MLA McGuire for the last couple of minutes. Deputy Hackett, as I'm sure you're aware, on June 1st, Minister Law issued an order to close the gates at the Abateau at the Windsor Causeway. That order is due to expire tomorrow, I believe, June 15th. I'm just curious, were you or the department aware of that order prior to it being issued on the 1st?
Deputy Hackett.
I have to say that we weren't, but the Department of Public Works isn't really involved with that portion of the work. So it would be that would have come from obviously Minister Law of EMO, and it would be the Abateau is current Abateau is operated by agriculture. And the order is and the federal order on that Abateau is with agriculture. So Public Works really doesn't have much involvement with that, with the way that current state of that structure.
MLA McGuire.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just a quick question. I just looking back the last couple of years, and one of the things I would like for the department to table to this committee is because something I've been unable to get information on. Shortly after the new government came in, we were in negotiation. We as a community were in negotiation with HRM on the development of the J.L. Leslie High School. Part of that was the regulation size football field, and it was agreed upon by the municipality to give money to the province to help build and maintain this field. Shortly after that, I received a letter from Paul LaFlash, the former deputy minister, saying that the province was pulling out of the agreement. And when I asked the Minister of Education why, she said those kids could walk to Graves Oakley. She clearly doesn't know the area. So I would like for the department to table the conversations and how that decision was made for this committee so that we can be open and transparent on how and when resources and money are spent in our community.
MLA McGuire, just a reminder that the topic of this is 2018, 2019, and 2020 follow-up reports in bridges in the Central Western Zone. But
it's not what the Auditor General said when you missed the meeting. It's not what the
MLA McGuire.
Sorry, it's not what the Auditor General and the chair said in that discussion. They said Mr. Smith can shake his head all his wants. It's nice for you to acknowledge me now that you've blocked me, but I would just like for you to. I would like for you to actually. I'm sorry.
I just want to get to my.
MLA McGuire.
Thank you. I would just like that to be tabled to the committee so that we can see where the money's being spent and where the resources are being put. And just for clarification for the people in my community and for HRM, because they're confused on why that decision was pulled out of.
Deputy Hackett.
I'll have to see what I can find. I wasn't part of the discussion. Much of that has to do with the Department of Education as well, on the decision to go from a size of field to another size of field, soccer field, I think, to maybe a different size of field. So I don't know a whole lot about that. I'd have to basically look that up and where the decisions came from.
MLA McGuire.
How long?
You got a minute.
So thank you for that. And so the reason why I think it's important that we know these things is because obviously any project, any sizable project is going through the Department of Transportation. We know that there is potential for political interference in this department when it comes to projects from partisan politicians. And it was troubling to me because I feel like we're going down the same road with, we just heard where the member for Eastern Shore, talked about a bridge, and we're sitting over here going, he's going to get a timetable on it. It's going to get approved. And so when we're asking questions on this side, we're not getting specific timetables. We're not finding out when these projects are going to be done. And again, this is not on the department. I think there's bigger political interference at play here, and that's why I think when these decisions are being made, we need to know why they're being made, why our projects are being left off. It's not just an HRM. I know that the member for Clare had some projects that were approved that were pushed down the pipeline.
That concludes time for the Liberal Caucus. MLA Coombs.
Thank you. I'm just going back to my last question that it's my understanding that a new bridge inspection procedure has been finalized. And just can you table that to the committee, please?
Mr. Maillet. Mr. Crocker.
Yes, you're correct. That has been finalized, and we can provide that.
MLA Coombs.
Thank you very much. The AG also the AG's report also found that the department was not completing regular bridge inspections as required by the department's policy. I'm wondering if this can be explained, and are inspections currently overdue for any bridges, and if so, which ones? And if that's a list, then that can be tabled as well.
Mr. Crocker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So you're correct. That's one of the deficiencies that was identified. Our current inspection system has what we call level 1, which is scheduled to be done on every bridge every year. It's a general cursory overview of each structure for any safety or maintenance concerns. Then we have a regularly scheduled level 2 inspection, which is dependent upon highway classification, the previous inspection condition, and the type of structure that it is. So all this is contained in the inspection procedure and policy. Regarding the question about, do we have a list of, overdue inspections? As a result of the AG recommendations, until our new system is in place, we've been doing regularly data extracts from our current system, doing analysis in spreadsheets, which has allowed us to provide, tracking of what has or hasn't been done. And that's regularly provided to our district staff to be followed up with and addressed.
MLA Coombs.
I'm sorry, Chair, I didn't hear any numbers, so I'm wondering, do they currently know how many bridges are overdue for inspection? And how many?
Mr. Crocker.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have a number of what is currently overdue for the current year. We would have started our new inspection cycle, January of this year. So we would have started our level 1s are required, for this year on every bridge. I don't have numbers on me about how many have been done to date. And similarly, our level 2s, I don't have a number of the numbers that were scheduled or, what may or may not have been done to date. But we do have those numbers. I just don't have them on me.
MLA Coombs.
Thank you. Chair, I asked that we follow up with the department that they provide us those numbers. It's unfortunate they don't have them today, considering that this is what the topic was on. And into your writing, Mr. Chair, we saw that a bridge was destroyed, a roadway bridge was destroyed, the Shelburne fires. And so my question is, how are we constructing our bridges to be more resilient to increasing to the increasing climate change threats? And how vulnerable are our aging bridges to the threats of fire and flooding?
Mr. Hackett, or Deputy Hackett?
Yeah, I'm just going to start a little bit, and then I'm going to hand it off to Mr. Maillet. Yeah, so it's a good point about the climate change, and over the last number of years, not so much on the fire issues that we've just currently had, but certainly on rising water, intense rainfalls, issues with coastal erosion. We have changed our designs and our structures to make sure we accommodate for that. When we put new structures in, sometimes we actually rehab some structures, and we've gone to making some things bigger, looking at the way water flows differently. So that is ongoing with our department as we continue to replace and rehabilitate. It is a hard thing to do sometimes because climate change does come unexpectedly. We had an issue in Cape Breton in the fall of 21. We lost about 5 bridges in Cape Breton due to some flooding down in that area. That was very isolated, where the water, the rainfall hit the top of the mountains around the Ingonish area, and then on the other side in Marguerite, and took out a number of bridges. So those bridges were all replaced at a better standard than they are today. So it's hard to predict, but as we go through replacing them, we do upgrade them to a different standard. Don, do you want to add something to that?
Mr. Maillet.
Just want to take my time back, please, Mr. Chair, because I got limited time.
With respect, if you ask a question, I think it's the witnesses should be able to answer one. Mr. Maillet.
And I'm reclaiming my time, please, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Maillet.
Mr. Chair, I have a follow-up, and I'd like to reclaim my time, please.
Emily Coombs, with respect, if you ask the witnesses a question, they should be entitled to answer the question.
And it was answered, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair, and I would please like to do a follow-up.
Emily Coombs.
Thank you. So, Mr. Hackett, you said it comes on climate change comes unexpectedly. I just want to say, first, it does not come unexpectedly. We know it's coming, so I'm just, it's good to know that these new bridges are resilient. So with that, I'm going to ask another question, and that is with regards to the repairs that need to be made to bridges when things happen. What is Public Works doing to ensure warranty repairs are covered by the responsible parties and not Nova Scotia taxpayers?
Deputy Hackett.
I'll leave that to Mr. Crocker or Mr. Maillet.
Mr. Maillet.
So we implemented, of course, a system to track when the work's completed and when the proper warranty period has ended, and at which point we do a fairly detailed inspection with both the engineer and the consultant and the contractor, at which point we identified the deficiencies. And it's staggered. We have a fairly rigorous warranty period for that 1 year after substantial completion. And then after that, for bridges, we have another 2 years of extended warranty for other things that we feel that might fail within that 2 year period. In the process of doing all this, of course, we have the correspondence that goes between the department and the contractor, and we hold them accountable. And what we do as well is that we have surety in place through the contractual obligations of the contractor that will enable us to call upon if the contractor decides not to fulfill his requirement or their requirement, under the contract through the warranty period. So we certainly have that in place for the public or the taxpayer to identify if there's a delinquent contractor.
Emily Coombs.
Thank you so much. That was that helps. And with limited time, I'm going to pass on the remainder to my colleague Sue LeBlanc.
Emily LeBlanc.
Thank you. So just with the last bit of time we have left, the last time Public Works was at committee, there were a few questions that we didn't get answers to, so I'm hoping some of that information might be available. Wanted to know what the current cost right now of the Hogan Court Hotel Health Project is.
Deputy Hackett.
Yes, I'm going to hand that off to Mr. Benoit.
Mr. Benoit.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the question. Hogan Court was just recently transferred into build in order to continue the renovations that are required, and there's actually no change to any of the dollar figures already provided.
Emily LeBlanc.
So the estimates that we have right now are 15 million. Is that correct? Okay, great. When will the province release the assess? When will the When will the province release the assessment that confirms the P3 approach for the current stage of health redevelopment projects?
Mr. Benoit. Mr. Benoit.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the question. Just for clarification, you mean the value for money report, is it? So we've received that report and we're analyzing it now. And
Mr. Chair, it sounds like apparently the meeting is muted. To Kendra? She's texting to say she can't hear anything.
Can you hear me? No? Yeah.
it's all right.
Mr. Benoit.
Thank you for the question. So we have received that report, and now we're going through it and having, you know, as with everything, there's always discussions, questions that we may have about the report. So we're just clarifying those questions. Once it's available, like once it's accepted and it should be made available as we had previously said it would be.
MLA LeBlanc.
Thanks. Do you have a timeline on that?
Mr. Benoit. Mr. Benoit.
Thank you for the question. I don't have a specific time for you right now. I hadn't checked with my team to see how that is progressing before we came here.
MLA LeBlanc.
Okay, maybe we can just get that information, like just a email back to the clerk about when we can expect to have that information would be great. How much time do I have left?
About 45 seconds.
All right. Well, so I just wanted to ask quickly, there's a bridge in Eastern Passage that sounds like that it's similar to the one that Mr. McGuire was talking about, where it's not safe for pedestrians or anyone in a accessibility mode of transport to cross, and it's also used for spring fishing and that kind of thing. Just wondering if there is any plan to look at that bridge and add accessibility, like what you were talking about with the sidewalk on the side or cantilevered sidewalk or whatever, if there's anything with that bridge in Eastern Passage.
Order. That concludes questioning for the NDP. I'll start with MLA Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to begin by offering a quick apology to the witnesses for some of the unprofessional and disorderly conduct that's been taking place today in committee. We certainly value the time that you folks put into preparing for this and the time that you bring and the knowledge that you bring to this committee. So accept our apologies, please. I also want to get on the record. I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but I want to test the memory. So there's been claims of partisanship in decision-making, which is certainly not true. The Musquodoboit Harbour Bridge that we spoke about during the last round of questioning, I'm wondering if Mr. Hackett or Mr. Maillet can test their memory and think about when that bridge was first put on the list.
Mr. Maillet?
Yeah, that's correct. Of course, through the inspection process, you certainly identify some of the deficiencies associated with the infrastructure, and I suspect before it actually gets on the program for rehabilitation, you would probably be a good 3 or 4 years prior to that to look at the bridge through the selection process. So, yeah, well before, like from today, would be at least 6-7 years ago.
MLA Smith.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'll tell you, it was first put on, I believe, in the 2016-17 capital plan. So I'll be tabling that document to make sure that the accurate information is shared with the committee. Mr. Maillet.
Mr. Maillet.
You're not the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My reference to 2 years was when we actually were going to proceed with the capital expenditure on the rehabilitation project, which the pre-planning would have been several years before then.
MLA Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Maillet. That concludes my questioning for now. I believe I'm going to take over.
MLA Taggart.
Thank you, Chair. And just quickly, with respect to all these accusations about political favoritism, I want to just quickly point out 2 things. Last year, I believe, and you guys can confirm or deny or whatever, it's easy to be looked up, but the minister, there was a bridge in the minister's riding that was on the tender to be constructed last year, and because of the overall cost of bridges was removed, I believe. And secondly, in my own personal riding, a bridge that had been put on the list because of need, without question, by former Deputy Premier Casey, has been pushed back as well, I believe, for at least a year. So I just want to put that on there as a result of all these innuendos. So, but my real question is, it has to be about, I have to ask this about, because we are talking about bridges, and the Salmon River Bridge on the 102 between Colchester North and Colchester South, and significant traffic delays there. And I get asked a lot of questions. It's very frustrating. Everybody can understand that. That bridge has had a lot of, it's a difficult spot and had a lot of work over the years. And one of the questions that's come up often to me is why was that work, why was the Bailey not put, or a temporary bridge not put in there? Is anybody able to answer that for me?
Deputy Hackett?
I'll pass it over to Mr. May.
Mr. May.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So yes, the Salmon River Bridge, I concur. There is a lot of impact to the traffic, especially at rush hour and or on a Friday afternoon, or at any time where the public has to go north, I guess. The bridge itself is a rehabilitation project. We're fixing some of the beams underneath, and we're fixing some of the work around the parapet walls, and we're fixing some of the decking. And for that to happen, we need to have a lane closure. And when we do that, of course, all the underneath work, we need the proper scaffolding, safe scaffolding for the workers to get down there in a safe manner for them to conduct the work. Having said that, when we evaluated the bridge to get rehabilitated, we looked at the possibilities of trying to put a structure in place that could prevent the queuing or the one-lane situation. In this case, it's a fairly large span there. There's multiple piers on the existing infrastructure that span us through the land side. There's a floodplain there, and also on the river side where there's the water. Of course, if we would have to put a Bailey Bridge or a detour bridge of such in place, it would have been fairly costly, and it would have been, I'm not quite sure if it was manageable given the span that we had to do there, because what we had to do because of the requirements through the Fisheries Act and the requirements through all the regulatory approvals, because our detour bridges have to go through the exact same screening as a normal bridge, because we have to be sensitive of the environment and everything around the designs. So it was determined at the time that probably the best approach was to do a lane drop, only because of the economics and the difficulties of putting a fairly large detour bridge in, which I'm not sure if Mr. Crocker knows or not, but that detail about if the bridge could actually be built to span that span that we would require.
Mr. Crocker?
Thank you, Chair. Anything's achievable with enough money, but you would have had to make probably multiple piers into the water to allow that to happen. And to Mr. Maillet's point, significant cost for that.
Thank you. Mr. MLA Taggart.
Well, thank you for the question, for the answer. I'll repeat it many times, trust me. So I want to ask about another bridge that in my riding that is certainly not a political bridge, but exit 13 at 104 was struck by a vehicle some time ago, and set up and engineering, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, determined that one lane of that bridge, overpass bridge, was not safe. So a set of traffic lights were put in at the entrance to the Burton Air Industrial Park. And, you know, folks have been grumbling but quite patient. I'm just wondering, I know there was engineering going on, and I'm hoping it's going to tender soon. Is anybody able to give me any information on that?
Mr. Crocker?
I'll take it.
Mr. Deputy Hackett.
I'll take it. Well, let me find out some information on you, and we'll have to get back to you what the status of that one is. I don't think it's probably being handled at the field level, and hasn't made its way into our hands yet, so it's probably being done down there. So let me get that information, we'll get it back to you.
Emily Taggart.
I'm trying to think of that word, Godspeed, please, okay? So I just, to go on here, what process, and I don't think this has been answered, it might have been a lot of different, but what process has been used to monitor the ongoing progress of completing inspections during the time of the new VMS is being implemented? That's with reference to recommendation 2.4 of the Auditor General. Has that been answered and I missed it? It has been answered? Okay. MLA Sheehy, do you have any questions? If not, I'll ask
MLA Sheehy-Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look alive, I guess, at the moment here. So I just, in response to one of the follow-up responses, you had talked about hiring a maintenance planner in 2022. I don't think we touched on that. Have we? Oh, we have? No. Okay, good. Can you describe the role of what this individual is going to provide in specific ways they address the issues of unrecorded work on the completed bridges in relation to recommendation 2.1?
Mr. Crocker. Mr. Crocker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the maintenance planner, part of their role has been involved in doing background spreadsheet work and helping us do some of the work which I mentioned previously about, some of the data that's going to feed into our new system. One of the primary roles that they have been involved with is, to the previous question, helping us track our inspections. So they've been taking the data extract from our current SIS. They've been identifying, what inspections have been done, have not been done, and ones that might have been overdue for the subsequent years, for the current year, but also ones that are already done for the current year. And that gets sent out to the district bridge engineer for, identification and, making sure they get done as scheduled. So that is the primary role that the maintenance planner was involved with.
MLA Sheehy-Richard.
And then switching gears back to, we talked about the IAG and address the matter of contaminated sites differently. Can you just explain what's different about the way it's being addressed now versus how it was being addressed before?
Mr. Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Certainly. So I think the most important takeaway from that, how we're handling or how the province is handling contaminated sites differently is our approach is more consistent now between different departments, and also with the creation of the committees, there's more collaboration happening between the different departments. So just as an example, where I mentioned before the risk ranking matrix that was created, that has been discussed in those committees. We've got feedback from other departments. We've also been, as I mentioned earlier, working very closely with the Office of the Auditor General on that, and we just had a meeting with them a couple weeks ago where we received positive feedback on that.
Order. That concludes our questioning for the witnesses today. So I'd like to thank the witnesses for appearing here, and I'll offer some closing remarks. Deputy Hackett.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I I just want to say thank you to you and the committee for having us here today to speak on two very important topics related to public works. Obviously, bridges affect everybody every day in the province, and the contaminated sites as we progress to work on cleanup of a lot of sites that are out there and helping getting those properties and lands back to either managed sites or back to usage for sale. I also want to just thank our staff for being here, all the witnesses, and I just want to say thanks to all of our staff across the province in our head office for all the work they do every day. I think that it's important to take away from this meeting, important to take away from our department. We're out there every day, our staff are out there every day working very hard to make sure the highway system, the road system is safe for the motoring public. We're very appreciative of all the money that we get from government to look at the bridges that we've added to our program this year, all the infrastructure we're able to get done this year. It's a big program. We have very good staff that's out there looking at all the infrastructure to ensure it is safe. We have very good staff out there making sure that the infrastructure will get built and replaced. And I just want to say thanks to them and all their hard work. And once again, thank you for having us here.
Thank you. Maybe we'll take a quick 2-minute recess just to allow the witnesses to move on. So we're now in recess.
Thanks, guys.
All right, order. I call this meeting back to order. Okay, on the agenda we have, for the June 23rd meeting regarding the Auditor General Report of Island Employment, the Ombudsman is unable to make it for the 23rd, so how does the committee want to proceed with that? Is there any discussion?
June 23rd?
Yeah. Are we okay with continuing the meeting without the MLA LeBlanc?
Mr. Chair, can you just remind us who the other witnesses are? If it's just him, then it's probably not going
Yeah, NSG, EU, and LSI? Yeah, is that okay?
Kendra's saying yes, it's her.
Okay, seeing nods around, so everyone's okay? Okay, we'll continue with that meeting. And we have a motion on the floor from the 7th, MLA McGuire.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And if you could just remind people here what the motion is. Last committee, obviously, we didn't get a chance to vote on it, so there's not much more left for me to say, except for, a lot of people have said that they're doing everything they can to get our most vulnerable children back in school and support the workers that are out on the front line and that are standing out here right now. This is a way to put actions into words. People can say whatever they want, but it's action time. So I'd like to once again put the motion on the floor, or remind people what the motion on the floor is. I move that the Public Accounts Committee schedule an emergency meeting on the topic of inclusion in our education system, calling on witnesses from the IWK and Inclusion Nova Scotia to appear before this committee to address the ongoing and widespread long-term impact the strike is having on our children and loved ones. And I will remind people, because what was said last week is that this was about negotiations. It is not about negotiations. We're not here to talk about contract negotiations. We're here to talk about inclusion in our education system, which the Supreme Court ruled on a long time ago. So the motion's on the floor. I ask that we respect the motion, respect and vote on it.
Emily LeBlanc.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I will speak in favor of this motion. I think it's an important subject for us to be talking about, especially at this time where many of the students who would benefit from full inclusion cannot, because of the fact that the government is not negotiating right now with the CUPE. I also just want to take this moment to welcome a number of members of CUPE 5047 to the committee room today. As we all know, these folks have been on strike for more than a month. They are working with poverty wages. They are living with poverty wages, and they are working with some of the most vulnerable people in our school system, kids with special needs, African Nova Scotian and Mi'kmaq students who benefit from support workers, of course our 4-year-olds who are benefit from the pre-primary program, and none of these kids are able to connect with their people at this moment, with their workers. And I just want to thank the workers for their continued commitment. And I can't remember if I told this story last week, but I don't think I did. But last week I was standing on the picket line and just talking to a few workers, and there was traffic that sort of stopped, and there was a car right that was stopped in traffic right by the picket line, and I watched as the windows went down, and this little kid stuck out his head and went, "Hi, Miss Johnson," and then Miss Johnson came running out from the tent and reaching into the car, touching the kids. "Oh my God, I miss you," and the kids were, and the parents were, and it was beautiful and heartbreaking. And Miss Johnson clearly loved and missed by the students that she works with, and it was a great example of how important it is that this gets resolved, but resolved in a way that the workers can afford to pay the rent and put food on their table. So I support the motion. I think it's an important topic, and that's all I'll say. Thanks.
Emily Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I just want to be brief, but of course say that I too support the motion that's on the floor here. Unfortunately, I've gotten to see a lot of the people here and the people outside more often than I'm sure they would like, because they'd like to be in the classroom helping the kids, the close to 5,000 children actually in HRM who are impacted by this ongoing strike, which has gone on for far, far too long. I've said this before to others, but my son was in the pre-primary program last year, and I know how much it did for him socially, emotionally. He made tons of friends who hopefully will be friends of his for the rest of his life, and his teachers were incredible and never stopped working, and it's just an amazing program. And I think it's a real shame that we are getting very close to the end of the school year, and we've had close to 5,000 kids out for very close to a month now. So I just want to say thank you to everybody for your work, and thank Emily McGuire for bringing the motion forward. Thank you.
Call the question.
MLA Coombs.
Yes, just briefly. And first, my solidarity with the workers of CUPE 5047. Inclusion matters, Mr. Chair. And we have students who have been excluded from school for far too long, and this has major effects. It also has effects on the families some who have not been able to go to work because their children cannot go to school because their support system are unfortunately on strike fighting for a better wage and living conditions themselves. And so I fully support this motion, and I hope to see an emergency meeting fairly soon. Thank you.
Call the question.
MLA Sheehy-Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to state for the record that I think we can all appreciate that and agree that children should be back in school. And we appreciate the concerns from the members opposite and understand that disruption of strike is obviously causing stress for students and families. But we must continue to remind the members that public accounts is established for the purpose of reviewing the public accounts, the annual report or other report of the Auditor General and any other financial matters respecting the public funds of the province. So we do not feel that calling witnesses to discuss the topic reflects the purpose of this actual committee in its mandate. Public accounts serves Nova Scotians by reviewing the effectiveness and efficiency in the spending of public funds. And Mr. Chair, we're not as an investigatory body for ongoing current matters.
Is there any other discussion? Oh, MLA Taggart.
Yeah, so, it's Emily McGuire and I had this discussion earlier this morning, but the bottom line is I understand, and just for the record, I have family and good friends, as well as a lot of constituents that work as teachers' assistants, I think is the proper termination in Colchester North, and I understand totally, but I have to tell you, and I understand the urgency of this thing. I'm fortunate in that, I'm very happy actually that my residents got parity, and so I understand the angst that everybody's in, the workers, the students and the families and the children and the whole thing. But I got to tell you, I have real trouble. Unless the Auditor General has done an audit and we have something to work with other than, for me, this kind of a discussion will only be public discussion, will only turn into a political I got you thing and will not accomplish anything. So, I'm not, if I had my way, I'll tell you right now, I'd talk this thing out. But decide what people want to do here. But I'll just tell you right now, I'm not going to support it because the Auditor General has not, I actually believe it's very disrespectful for us, or not for us, for some people to continue to bring items, and if people did it before, I don't know how they handle it. I'm just telling you that the Auditor General has done a great job in the work she does, and some of it we may agree with, some of it we may disagree with, but the bottom line is that she has a job to do, and I think we as a committee have a job to do as well, and that is to respect the work of the Auditor General and the Public Accounts Committee. Now, if I'm missing something, please let me know. Emergency debate on things, that's fine, but this will turn into a whatever. It'll just be it'll be a who can get the best clip to put on their Facebook. So that's my thoughts on it. I'm disappointed that any of these issues, and I'm new to government and new to this table, but I don't think that this is the venue. Thank you.
MLA Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've struggled on whether or not to chime in or not. This strike is hugely impactful to the workers and the kids and the families that are going without the ability to go to school. I've spent a ton of time on the picket lines. I've spoken to striking workers in the Porters Lake area and in the Sheet Harbor area, and I've tried to make myself as available as possible and listened to their concerns and listened to what they feel is an unfair offer. And I feel for them. You know, clearly we're in this situation, and it's not what we want, and it's not what the students want, and it's just, it's not a great situation. This particular motion, though, this is not the place to be debating this topic. This topic doesn't help get you back to work, which is what the people in my constituency are telling me that they want. They want to get back to work. They want to be at the table, which I believe they are right now, at the table, as I was told by some of the people that I spoke with this morning. So while this motion is a very important topic, and I respect the fact that this is a very important topic, debating it at public accounts is not the right place for it. This committee has a mandate to look at the money of the province, and debating inclusion and the struggles with this strike is not the right place. So I'm going to leave enough time for us to vote. We're not going to support this motion. So with those words, I'll turn it back to the chair.
Call the question.
Is there any further discussion?
Recorded vote.
A recorded vote has been called.
She talked out.
Okay.
Mr. Smith?
No.
Mr. Taggart?
No.
Mr. McDonald?
No.
Ms. Sheehy-Richard?
No.
Ms. LeBlanc?
Yes.
Ms. Coombs?
Yes.
Mr. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
And Mr. Young? It's
No.
defeated.
Motion is defeated. Is there any other business? Oh, sorry. The meeting is adjourned.